The difference between knowing a map and not knowing a map isn't just casual. It's life or death, especially in a battle royale like Apex Legends. If you don't have an awareness of where you are or where you could go and someone else does, then they've got an advantage over you before you even start aiming or get into experience or whatever weapons they're using. So today in this video, I'm going to do something that is going to be crucial for all of you who want to be better players in Apex Legends Season 7, which is show you every single point of interest, every single location, drop zone, and explain it not only visually, but based on my experience, what to do, where the good loot is, and of course, where you will find the most action or areas to know about before you hop into Season 7. This is going to be an extensive overview video, and I spent hours and hours during the playtest early on in Season 7 where I was given a little bit of time to explore this map, to discover it, showcase it, learn it, and explain it to you all, so you have a heads up when you step in your games. And I'm excited because I haven't done this video since Season 1, and if you're new here or if you're old here, please let me know. Leave a like, comment, dislike, whatever it is. If you have questions, go ahead. I will try to answer them in the comment section below about the new map and what you can expect in the new season. All right, you guys ready? Let's get started. Now in Apex Legends Season 7, Olympus comes with 16 points of interest, but I'm going to start this off by saying I have not gone to Elysium. It is the only place that I will not be showing off in this game. I'm going to save that last location for us to check out on my live stream when I go live for the start of Season number 7 on Thursday on my channel. So make sure to hit the notification bell to be aware of what Elysium looks like and round out this video. But let's start with Banzai Plaza, which is probably the most iconic location outside of Rift in the entirety of Olympus. Now, Banzai Plaza is the first place we'll talk about, and it's really one of the most iconic locations in all of Olympus. This is a beautiful area, ornately decorated, that really serves as kind of the shining crown of where you want to be. You can imagine all the socialites hanging out here and really experiencing a fine dining, fine stay type of vibe. You may notice I'm riding in a Trident exploring some of this area, and this is one of the coolest things about Olympus and the new season. You can actually jump into a mode called Olympus Preview, which takes away guns and allows you to drop down, jump in Tridents, and just explore the map any way that you want, to check out areas, and of course to learn loot paths and to learn the best places to land. I suggest you do this once you have a chance to get in on November 4th, and you guys will really speed up your ability to be a better player in the game, because when you really know the map back and forth, in and out, you are going to have an advantage over any player that does not. Banzai Plaza is really filled with several corridors, and it's a large space. It's one of the larger POIs for sure. It's got several towers that have loot on the bottom floors and the top, and one of the coolest things is that the central tower has a club on top of it called the Reverie. Now the Reverie is really, I think, one of the places you'll see a lot of action, and it's meant for that, meant for intense close corridor combat. So shotguns are going to do you well here. It's got high tier loot, and it's got a central cafe where teams can kind of hide out and hold up, especially if you're a Caustic or maybe a Gibraltar or maybe even a Watson. Put some fences down. It will be hard for people to push you if you do get stuck. It's got 4 kind of tube-like walkways, and you can jump from the top of the Reverie all the way down to support a teammate who's on the bottom floor, but overall, it leaves Banzai Plaza feeling like an actual place where people were and they've abandoned, and that's why I think it's one of the coolest places. Noting the accents of the cherry blossoms and just the way that it feels and runs, this is going to be one of the most popular landing locations in Apex Legends Season 7, I guarantee it. Now, if Banzai Plaza is a little bit more hectic for you and you don't like the tower game, you could always land to the southwest at Hydroponics, which is one of my favorite areas to land. Hydroponics gives you that natural feel in a city that sometimes really needs it, and it's got this really nice open layout. As far as looting, there's very decent loot at Hydroponics, and you can loot inside the smaller buildings. There are also bigger buildings that are almost a fully operational plant of hydroponics going on, where you can see the plants being made, and inside have this kind of like green bacteria water that obviously probably has algae or something in it. I don't know. That's not my thing. I'm a YouTuber. Hydroponics reminds me the most of a place like Artillery Base, where there's this wide open layout, and it allows you to really get into a building, loot up, and then get out, or use that kind of up and down ramp like nature of the location to decide whether you want to peek up, shoot a sniper shot at an enemy who might be approaching, or really just dip out of there and use that wide open space and a Pathfinder grapple to just get away and and reset. I have a feeling this will be a popular place to land, and partly it's because it feels isolated from the rest of the map, and that's a good thing. When you do want to loot up and you don't want to get into that busy brawl where you can get third-partied, because Olympus isn't even that big of a third-party issue because of the size of the map, I think Hydroponics is still going to be one of those places where people like to enjoy the scenery, loot up, and then move on to their next location after grabbing a trident. It's also right next to the phaser, which we'll talk a little bit about later, which will transport you to other places in the map. So if you do need a quick getaway or a quick rotation, this is a great spot to do it from. Now, we mentioned how Hydroponics is kind of in its own little corner, but if you go north past the phaser, you're going to run into where people live on Olympus, or at least maybe lived in the past, a location called Estates. Now, Estates is a nice place to land if you do like having maybe one team that you fight right away. It's not going to be where everyone goes on this map. It's just a little bit north of Hydroponics, but it does give you that feel that this is where people used to live in their luxury apartments back when Olympus was populated before the accident with the rift. Loot's decent, but it's also really small, so if another team lands there, you will be in a fight almost immediately. And one of the things I found was it's a bit challenging to loot up because of the sparseness of the loot and the lack of just crazy good loot that's there. It's a little bit more mediocre loot, and so when you do get into that fight right away, you could have no gun, you could have no shield. It was a lot easier for me to get caught off guard in a location like Estates. But if you find it open, maybe you drop a little late, you say no one went to Estates, it's definitely enough to get decently geared for your team and then start rotating, trying to find fights and level your gear up that way. It's also much more central to the map, so you have a few more rotation options, considering that if you start too far in a corner on Olympus and you don't have a trident, your rotation possibilities will be limited since it is a bigger map than usual. Moving on to Oasis, which is a really popular landing location. One of the things to notice about Oasis is it is on the full western side of the map, and it's relatively central without a lot of obstruction to getting to another zone. You can go straight into Turbine and go right across the rest of the map into Energy Depot, rotate down to Estates, rotate up to Carrier or Docks. You have a lot of options here, so it is a really good landing location. One thing you may not know though is where to loot when you get here. Now, most of the fighting, as you would think, happens near the two tall towers, but really most of the good loot in Oasis is directly in the basement. So jump in there, go take the zip line down and start looting. This is where I have most of my engagements in this location, and beyond this, there's not too much to it. Oasis is a beautiful looking location. I think it's very central and rotation options are plentiful, which is going to make this very valuable. So on your day of playing, jump down there and see if this is kind of how you like to rotate, and whether you feel like you're getting caught off guard by people coming onto you through those rotations, or if you feel like you have more access of places to go, especially if things go awry, because there's a lot of good places to rotate off of if maybe you're contested at Oasis and you need to go to Docks or somewhere else and just start finding some more loot. Overall, it's a beautiful POI. It really only compares to places like Rift or Banzai Plaza and Hydroponics. I think you guys are really going to like this one. Docks is the next location, and it is one of the best places to land if you're a fan of places like Airbase or water treatment on the other maps of Apex Legends, specifically Kings Canyon. It gives you that open space feel, so you do feel comfortable knowing what's coming at you and not getting caught in close quarters fighting. Maybe if you're a sniper fan, or at least you like to plan and loot up and then move in slowly, this could be a location for you. One of the cooler things about Docks too is the layout. It's got this nice circular layout with buildings in between, space in between those buildings, but on the back side of Docks is this really cool circular driveway where you could take a trident, or you could just Pathfinder grapple, Octane stem, and run around to be able to access these little locations in the very back of the map that you could easily fall off on to loot, or at least just separate yourself from an enemy team chasing them, chasing you, and obviously set them up for maybe a surprise shot, or force them into a corridor to run and be able to get a lot of damage on them without them being able to maneuver away from your shots. If you're a high action player, Docks probably isn't for you, especially since it's only next to Carrier and of course Power Grid, which aren't going to be probably the most exciting places for people to land, and no one's going to be rotating from there to Docks. Most likely they might be rotating towards the center of the map, so just be aware that it might be a lower pace landing, but there'll be plenty of loot and plenty of open space to traverse, so in case you get jumped at from some team that you weren't expecting, you'll have some room to maneuver. In between Docks and of course Oasis is Carrier, which is really just a carrier train. It's almost like you really see the industrial working side of the planet planet of Olympus, or excuse me, the city of Olympus on the planet Zamathi, really just pushed up into that middle northwest side of the map. And all the other locations where maybe there's growing or maybe there's wealthy living are on these other aspects of the map. And so it's kind of a really cool way to see almost the class distribution and the zoning of how Olympus is built, and Carrier really solidifies that with the way that it looks and feels. My only hesitation with Carrier as a fun landing location is that it is really industrial. So if you're not into that look or that style, you're not necessarily going to find this your favorite place to land. One of the other aspects about Carrier is that inside the Carrier itself is where you want to loot. That's where there's high tier loot, very condensed, really fun, I think, options for you to loot and choose your loadout and get ready for the game. But in between that, on the route from Carrier to Oasis, or from, of course, Carrier to Docks, there's pretty much nothing. So make sure you're not caught out in the open during those looting sessions and a team is near you, because you will definitely not have any options to loot up and fight back. Moving on to Power Grid, which is a very small location, but a very central location right next to Turbine and, of course, next to Rift. In my opinion, if you want action, this is going to be a decent spot to land, because you can loot up here, and if people drop with you, you'll have a building to hold down or buildings to push to if they're there. You'll also be able to rotate to Rift quickly, where people will most likely land, or obviously to Turbine, to any other place of the map, as that is the central connector for all of Olympus. So you're going to find that Power Grid, I think, serves a very utilitarian purpose for looting up and then getting into the action, but not necessarily being too pressed at the start like you would in a Banzai Plaza dropping at the top of Reverie. I wish I could talk more about Power Grid, but there's just not that much to say. The gimmick is this is where, you know, the Power Grid is for Olympus, and you see a bunch of power lines kind of running throughout it, but it's a very simple layout, and it's not intended to do too much, because all the other areas next to it are really some of the best places in Olympus, which leads me to my favorite POI, Rift. Now, we've talked about the Rift multiple times throughout this last week. You've seen it in Horizon's story. When she lands back at Olympus, the Rift is there, and you know, we assume that this could have been part of how she got back to Olympus after being trapped for 87 years in space by that evil mother. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go there. Anyways, by the scientist that was accompanying her. But anyways, it's the beautiful location that gives you that dark feel that contrasts perfectly with the bright, cloudy, beautiful scenery of Olympus. When you go into the zone of Rift, what you'll notice is that there are buildings all around the outside, from a decayed experiment or explosion of energy that really sent all of the tourists there and the people who lived on Olympus running, because it just attracted a very scary dynamic of, well, is this thing stable? What's going to happen? What you'll notice is that there is a ball of energy in the middle of the map, and this is where things get fun. Now, there's a beautiful color scheme in Rift, and when you get down to that central area near that ball, you'll be able to loot underneath it. There's actually a little, you know, staircase that leads actually underneath that platform, because it is a very exposed walkway. But what is the benefit of going there? Well, if you get inside the area of circumference of that ball, right outside of it, it's kind of marked off, you will get sucked in to the black hole, vortex, wormhole, whatever it is, and phase into another area of the map through the phasers that exist all throughout Olympus in Season 7. My first time walking up to it, I was so scared. I was like, what is this going to do? But it was amazing. I popped out, and there was a team on the other side who had no idea that I was coming there, and I had no idea I was going there either. I shot them, they shot me, I ran back, and when you go back through that same tunnel, you will then jump back into the area of Rift and redeploy as if you were jumping off of a balloon. You can keep going back through the phaser multiple times, and in fact, that's what I did, and it made for some incredible fights, some incredible gunplay, and just back and forth. Were they going to follow me through the Rift? Was I going to go back and try to finish them or third party them? It creates some interesting gameplay decisions that I think is going to really spice up Season 7, and it's one of the best parts of Olympus, because you never know if someone's going to come through the Rift and basically, you know, take out your backside, because that is really what's hard to protect with these phasers, allowing so much fast, rapid mobility through a map that is so big. One big thing about phasers that you do need to know in the tunnels is that they will transport you, so it's a great way if you're running away from the zone to get to a safe location. But if you try to go back into a zone that is already closed through a phaser, you will still take damage. This is not Wraith's Portal. You will not be invulnerable. I've died taking a phaser that happened to be halfway in the zone and halfway out of the zone, and I did not have enough time to get back before my health disappeared. So be very careful, don't make that mistake. We're now close to the eastern side of the map. In fact, you know what, we're already there. Gardens. It is gardens, a beautiful green area that is surrounded by what you would assume a garden. Gardens is a pretty location because obviously it's got the cherry blossom trees, but it's got that tri-level design where you have a middle level, you have a sunken level where the cherry blossoms are, and there's looting underneath in that low ground area, and there's also a third level, which is the high ground. And so where you land really gives you a better vantage point to be able to assess the situation and obviously take safer fights. Landing at the very bottom will put you into a heap of trouble if you do not have a plan to get out. There's also a backside of gardens if you want to keep moving, or maybe the loot is too contested, where you could loot a little safer and pick up a trident to be able to rock through this kind of high sky freeway that will connect you eventually over to our next location we'll discuss. Although there's not much going on, I feel like there will be decent action at garden almost every game because there's gonna really be a few teams who want to loot up there and contest, and if you get the entirety of gardens to yourself, you will definitely have a very strong loot pool going into the next circle. And if you want to get out of there, it's just a sky freeway away to Orbital Cannon. That's right, the big cannon that, you know, tried to shoot down the Apex Legends as they made their way to Olympus in the Ascension trailer. Now, Orbital Cannon is really only as cool as the cannon, which is pretty damn cool. So the cannon is a great feature. It just makes you feel like, wow, this character development of this city, it has a story to tell just by looking at it. That's why I like this POI. As far as loot, it's a little hard. It's all kind of in this really curved shaped corridor with these smaller buildings that don't lead anywhere except in and out. And so you can get stuck pretty easily if a team is outside or has high ground on one of these buildings with not a lot of places to go. I haven't found there to be incredible loot, but every time I go there seems to be a purple shield somewhere. So there might be some high tier loot towards the backside near the cannon, which is obviously a little bit more exposed, but could give you some more reward if you are willing to risk it. It also is the closest big POI aside from Hydroponics to Bonsai Tower, and so you may get some people rotating to the right and running into them as they're moving towards the middle of the circle, or if they don't have enough loot. The teams that get pushed out of Bonsai early might be able to come to Orbital Cannon, so it will create a nice little, feed off if you're looking for some more action, but you still want to loot towards a corner of the map. It's a bit of a risky landing, even though it's in the corner of the map, because like most corner POIs, you're forced to really fight the team that lands with you because you can't retreat except in one direction, and that's usually where they are. So be careful. I'm not sure if the risk is worth the squeeze on this one, considering the loot is still pretty decently average except for that one shield. So you guys will have to let me know what you think in the comment section below. In between Orbital Cannon and Gardens, however, is one of the cooler POIs. It's the Grow Towers. Yeah, wait, like what? Dude, you've never heard of a grow tower before? What, are you from like 2020? Grow towers are towers that are growing things like plants and also revolving constantly in a circle, allowing you to go up and see different vantage points on the map and fight this kind of really cool layered battle, while also getting some pretty good loot. These are going to be one of the more fun places to land in my opinion, because they're pretty central to the map. They could also rotate to many different areas quickly, and so I like grow towers a lot. Let me know what you guys think. I've had some really cool fights on this area, and I just like the scenery. I like how connected it is to other POIs, whether I'm rotating east, north, or even south, so I do really appreciate this landing. So that's Grow Towers. Now we're moving on to Solar Array, and yeah, you guessed it, the theme is a huge solar panel and a lot of other buildings arrayed around it. I do really like this location though. I've had some of my favorite fights in the playtest here, and part of it is because there's a lot of sneaky hiding places, there's really nice levels within the buildings, and even on the solar tower, the solar panel itself is surrounded by a ton of loot. I remember landing one game and all the loot around it was high level sniper gear, from extended mags to sniper stocks to every single sniper in the game almost twice over. It was like a plethora of stuff. So you're going to find some really cool loot right next to the solar panel, and it's also going to be right next to a rift. So if you want any type of rotation, you can go into the rift phaser and you can find yourself heading over towards the actual rift. You can head towards estates or hydroponics after you loot up, and you can also just take a nice trip down south and head to Banzai Plaza after that initial fightings happen and one or two teams have died. So Solar Array gets my stamp of approval for a very fun landing spot. One of the most central locations that I haven't talked about yet is Hammond Labs. Now obviously Hammond Labs is just a huge theme for Apex Legends and a lot of the behind the scenes storyline, but how it transports itself or manifests itself within Olympus is very simple. It is a circular building with two two ways to get in. One, the bottom floor where you walk through near the waterfall direction of the entrance. So if you're facing the waterfall, then that is the entrance you can use, or you can skydive straight down through the very top of the tower, which I didn't realize for a while. I kept landing on the roof and like, I can't get into this thing. Inside, there's a bunch of lab equipment, and it's really just follows the layout of a circular area where you're discovering more and more of the lab. You're looting up from multiple staircases, and it kind of plays like Crypto's tower room, so to speak. So it's ultimately a decent POI. It's very central, and you will be able to see a lot of fights happening there or get to a fight from there pretty quickly. I gotta say, the limited entrances into it from the ground floor makes it a bit of a gamble for me. I'm not ever sure I want to go in there because if a team pushes me, I kind of know I have to fight my way out. I can't really run my way out of that one. It also is a really nice connection to the middle of the map called Turbine, which we'll get into right now. But above that entrance, you could take a really cool zip line up to almost this like waterfall little building, which, you know, feels like it's the director of Hammond Labs, like just study, or, you know, the Oval Office of the boss who's overseeing Hammond Labs. He lives there, or he works on a special project up there, and it connects to two kind of freeways that go down to either side of the map. So a really beautiful POI in general. Energy Depot is the second to last location we'll be talking about in this video, and I appreciate you guys staying here, hanging out with me. And of course, if you do have any comments about this video, make sure to leave a like, leave a dislike, or let me know whether you liked it or not, or have a question in the comments below. Moving on to Energy Depot, like I said, the last POI, it's really in the same vein of Power Grid and Solar Array. All of these areas are going to look pretty similar, and that's why I think Bonsais and Oasises and Hydroponics and Orbital Cannon even, I mean, they stand out more because they've got these huge themes. Probably the biggest part about Energy Depot is how close it is to Turbine, which is the center POI of the map that connects to every other area of the map, but also because it takes this huge zip line, which is extremely dangerous, and I've seen a lot of people fall off that goes directly to Rift. It's a quick way to get there, and you do have some freedom of movement. There's some high ground and low ground in Energy Depot, but overall, it's a relatively unimpressive POI compared to some of the others, but still a very good location in Olympus. I think you want less action, Energy Depot might be a spot for you. Now, finally, leaving you with the last POI, the final central place in Olympus, it's Turbine. Turbine is the central place, and it acts that way from every essence of the location. When you fall down, going straight down, almost as if you would go to Pit in Kings Canyon, you'll find turbine engines kind of moving, and you have to dodge between them in order to land safely or not kind of start off your jetpack before the other squad. There's a small central area, and there's a big outer ring that will connect to maybe small hubs of buildings, but really more just little looting cabins that you then get out of and have a choice to fight someone. The action is pretty up front, and one of the cool things I messed around with is that you could actually land and stay on one of the turbine engines for the 20 seconds before you get kicked out, or you die essentially if you stay out of bounds too much. One of the best things to know about Turbine is that as the circle goes, it will point you in the direction of wherever you want to be connected to. So it connects to the southern, the western, the eastern, and the northern parts of the map. And if you feel like you want to go to either of them, just follow that circle until above you reads the sign of estates or gardens or Banzai Plaza, and there will be a direct route from Turbine to an area that leads out towards it with loot along the way. It's really cool. It's a great design. It's a very central hub, and if you are contested there, get ready for a fight to the finish, because yeah, there are a lot of ways to run, but pretty much this encourages a lot of close encounter fighting, and if you're not ready for it, this may not be the spot for you. So the most important question right now is, what's your favorite POI? What's your favorite place to land, or what are you most excited about coming to Olympus in Season 7? And can you let me know in the comments section below? Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, dislike it if you didn't, and subscribe if you're interested in staying tuned to more of my content with the notification bell on. That way you'll actually get my notifications. Also, I'll be going live, like I said again, so a reminder to put that bell all the way on so you know when I go live the 2nd November 4th and the Season 7 Olympus launches for Apex Legends. You do not want to miss that live stream on YouTube. It's going to be amazing. As always, never give up, never stop gaming, and I'll see you all next time.